Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Friday morning, June 18th, and I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And I've got my chat room open if anybody would like to sit in there, if you're awake and everything. I'm just having some coffee, waking up, and glad it's Friday. We're going to finish up the coping list that I found, and anyone can find on Michael C. Irving's website, and that is www.irvingstudios.com /child_abuse_survivor_monument. And that's a great website. I really hope everyone will check it out. And we've been looking at this for almost 2 weeks now. He had some great ideas for people who have survived child abuse, adult survivors of child abuse, on ways to cope. And really, it's so important that we do learn how to cope and how to manage the feelings that we're having, and learn that we can do this. You know what I mean? And these coping lists are very helpful for anyone who's having a hard time coping. It doesn't, whether they were abused children or not. So many traumatic events can happen to people that cause people to not be able to cope, and sometimes it's just that too many things happen all at once, and it seems like our lives are out of control. And many people, we all experience that at some point in our lives. And so I just think the coping lists are awesome for everybody who's having a hard time dealing with things and just feels out of control and just wants to gain some of that back. So we'll finish this up, and then I have a whole bunch of resources that I just kind of wanted to share with everybody. And I just wanted to remind everybody also that tonight, Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Dreamcatchers Talk Radio here on Blog Talk Radio, Donna Shear and myself, we're going to be talking about my book, A Life of Death, The Redemption. And this is it's going to be great. We have questions and comments coming in from people already who have sent Donna questions and comments ahead. And anybody who wants to phone in, you can phone in. We'll try to get to your calls. It's for now 1 hour, and it's at www.blogtalkradio.com /Dreamcatchers. I hope you will join us. This is going to be an open, candid talk about my book, my memoirs, and if you have any questions or comments for me, you're more than welcome to ask. I like talking about my book. Otherwise I wouldn't have written it. I wrote it as a blog first, and Donna Shear saw it, and she said it really should be a book, and it should be out there for people. So that's just awesome. And I don't mind. Obviously, I don't mind talking about it. I really think silence is the issue regarding child abuse a lot of the times, because if society, would have stopped pushing child abuse under the carpet so many years ago, there would have been more being done. And abusers, of course, they want it silenced because then they can continue to do what they do, and then they won't be in trouble with the law and whatnot. They won't be in trouble with their own families. And survivors, quite often will remain silent for many reasons, due out of fear, safety reasons. The abusers still might be living, and they could fear for their life. Sometimes there's too much shame and guilt involved, and maybe they're just very private people, so they don't want to come forward. And for me, I'm going to do public speaking and advocacy work to help stop child abuse for the rest of my life. And I thought, well, if I'm going to if I'm going to go out there and I'm going to talk about child abuse and stopping and preventing child abuse and be in the public sector, then I need to be comfortable talking about my story. And I thought, when I broke the silence, I thought, this is really what the world needs to see, is the fact that this is happening. It's not just some clinical papers, written up by some doctors. This is real life for so many children, unfortunately. And as adult survivors, we know this. So I hope you will tune in. It's tonight at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Blog Talk Radio. And so we'll get right on with this. I'm not a professional counselor. I don't have any counseling certificates or professional certificates in therapy whatsoever. I'm just a private person who wants to share information with people, and that's why I'm doing these blog talk shows. And so, I just like to let everybody know, and, listen at your own discretion, because sometimes things that, can trigger people, especially survivors of child abuse, we know this. We can be triggered with certain things, and that's why it's so important for you to know where you're at in your healing, first of all, and also to know what is good for you to listen to. If things make you uncomfortable on anywhere, TV, radio, newspapers, books, whatever. You just have to turn them off, turn the TV off, turn the radio off, put the book away. You don't want to be triggered, and you certainly don't want to regress in your healing. And I've done a lot of reading on that and a lot of study on it. And we're supposed to be moving forward at our own pace, what's comfortable for us. And so that's why I always tell people, if you're uncomfortable with the topic of the show, just turn it off, because you won't be hurting my feelings at all. And you can always come back if you feel stronger or feel like listening another time. The archives will be there, and you're more than welcome to tune in at some point, So, yeah, just make sure you listen at your own discretion. And young people under the age of 18, I ask you to have someone okay it that you can listen to my shows, because there's a lot of adult content on my shows. And today's particular show, there isn't. So, but it doesn't matter. I'm fighting for children's lives, to save children's lives. Really, that's what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. For child rights, I fight for child rights and stand up for children and fight against abuse. So, I know and I study what's going on out there, and so young people really need to be very, very careful what they're doing online. And I would ask that you could practice asking an adult to listen to what you're listening to when you're listening to my show. Maybe you could have someone tune in to an archive or something, and just this way they can sort of see if it's something that you should be listening to, and then they can be there to help you if you have questions and whatnot. A lot of times abuse is just not talked about unless we see it in the paper after the fact, and the child is either killed at the hands of their parents or caregivers, or they are in the hospital due to abuse-related injuries. And thank God, they are reporting this stuff, because that's the whole issue. We need to get this out in the public eye. But otherwise, you don't hear too much about abuse, right? It's just all about the headlines, and no one's really talking publicly about survivors' issues and preventing child abuse, right? Well, there's a few, so I shouldn't say no one. There are people. And if you look around, you can find them. I see them all the time, and I'm so happy just to be one more voice to add to theirs, because I study this whole issue regarding child rights and protecting children, and so I see all this stuff, and I know there's people out there talking about it, but not so much in the mainstream, and neither even Blog Talk Radio is not the mainstream. So that's why I just ask people under the age of 18 to make sure that you get permission to listen to my shows, and you'd be doing yourself a favor and myself a favor. So thank you very much. So we'll get on with the show. It's the last part of this article from Michael C. Irving's coping list that he has on his website. And Michael C. Irving is a psychotherapist. He is a sculptor, and he's also a survivor of child abuse himself. So he is just doing everything he can to help people who have survived child abuse, right? And he created the Child Abuse Monument in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where there was, I don't know how many people, you can see on the website, I'm sure they listed how many people were involved in helping to make this child abuse survivor monument. And really, I don't know if it's thousands, but there was so many children and also adult survivors who were able to participate in this child abuse survivor monument. And they submitted handprints, they submitted poetry, their own stories, artwork, everything like that to do with their surviving the abuse that they suffered as children, or that that these children had gone through. And so it's really worth checking out. I hope everyone will take a look at it. It's a tribute for all those children out there that didn't make it and were killed or died due to abuse, that they suffered from their parents or caregivers. And it's also a tribute to those that did survive and have made it and are still walking. And just in the United States, this gives you an idea. 60 million survivors of child sexual abuse in the United States alone. So that's just in the United States. 60 million survivors of child abuse, child sexual abuse. So you can imagine how many more worldwide there are. It's absolutely insane, and that's why I'm working every day, and I will continue to do that to stop this absolute insanity and epidemic. It's a disease upon our world. People hurting children, and it's just wrong. So that's why I'm glad to be able to do these shows. And so check out his website, www.irvingstudios.com, or you can just type into your browser Child Abuse Monument. That brings that website up. Anything like that will bring that website up. And the information on there is great. And I like the coping list a lot. Like, we went through almost all of it. We're going to finish up the last part now, and I'll just finish it up, and we'll talk about some other stuff. Seeking assistance of your support people, that's the last part of his coping list for adult survivors. And he lists off a whole bunch of stuff on seeking assistance from our support people. So he says here, list names with phone numbers, clarify ahead of time what they can handle and what they cannot help with, and write down okay times to call. So we're supposed to have a list of names and with phone numbers, people with who are there to support us, and we need to talk to them ahead of time to find out what they can actually deal with and what they can't, because some people, would have a hard time dealing with some of the issues that adult survivors have. I know myself being one, and it's hard. Sometimes people just cannot be part of the whole thing because it's too uncomfortable for them. And some of the issues that we might be having might make them very uncomfortable. And so sometimes, one person might be able to be just a good shoulder, and they might be able to just listen to us, if we're just feeling down. Then another person who may have experienced some of this stuff, or they have gone through training of some sort for victims assistance or whatnot, they might be able to help us when we're really down, and we feel like we just cannot cope, and we're just at the point where, we're maybe not going to self-injure, but that we're feeling like we're sliding down, maybe into depression or having a lot of anxiety. It would be better to call upon somebody who actually has more ability and more skills to handle that sort of thing, right? So our therapist or counselor could be on that list, and friends and supporters, right? For just when you just need someone to talk to, and it's just, more mild or, issues going on. So that's the whole thing. That's very important. It says here, look through your address book. Use a buddy system, form a support group, support check-ins, get a friend to phone or write you to tell you that you are safe and a good person. And these are just ideas he's throwing out here. Designate a regular time to have check-ins with some people. That's a really good idea if you're feeling really down and you just feel like, man, I'm having a real hard time coping, and I don't know at what point, I could go over just a little bit too far into depression or whatnot. You could designate a regular time to have check-ins with people, and that way with some of your supporters, so that you could check in every day at a certain time, and they could just talk to you and see how you're doing. And it's sort of nice to have someone to talk to and like a backup. Sometimes so many people are on their own for so long, for so many years with no one around and no one to talk to and stuff. And so it's really sad to be suffering in silence alone like that. It's good to have somebody in your life who cares and who really wants the best for you, and wants you to heal and wants to see you make it. And those people, if they're offering and they are putting their hands out, be sure and take it. Because I've, in the last 8 months have really found that so many people do care, and that, when they are offering their hand of friendship, you better take it. Because it's hard to find good friends. It's hard to find people who care. And so when you do find someone who's willing to be there with you through the thick and thin, your worst days, your best days, you better hang on to them. And allow them to be part of your life, and you will be part of their life. And that's how you learn to trust and build these relationships, right? It says call your therapist. These are things that you can do, like to seek assistance from support people. Call a crisis or helpline, right? That's so important. Crisis lines are in the front of your phone book. I really highly suggest that everybody would call a crisis line if you're feeling down to the point where you can't handle it. I was about ready to call a crisis line quite a few times, probably about 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago. And I would have, too. Like, I'm sure I would have. Because, my brother killed himself, and he committed suicide, and it's not like he just tried the one time and he made it. He actually had tried many times before, and he was saved. So, the guy, he just couldn't cope. And that's unfortunate, because, it's his loss, too, right? He doesn't get to ever go on and have a good life. He doesn't ever get to experience healing. He's going to never experience knowing what it's like to wake up and say, I do count, I do matter, this is awesome, I'm going to do the best I can to help myself and to help other people too. And so, he'll never get that experience. He'll never get to know what it's like, because he suffered his whole entire life, being abused as a child and then growing up doing drugs and just having a horrible life. And he had lots of friends. It wasn't like he was on his own, but he just could not cope. And he was also a drug user, a big-time drug user, a cocaine addict. And it's really sad because he was very talented and whatnot. And he played guitar and he was in a band. And he was very talented. People just loved him, but he could not love himself, and he couldn't love his life. And he couldn't love it enough to stay around. He was in so much pain. And that really bothers me because he was in so much pain, and yet, he could not reach out and call a crisis line and get some help. That bothers me. So I hope that you will, not let yourself ever get down to that point where you're so low that you think that you might hurt yourself or someone else, and that you wouldn't pick up the phone and call a crisis line out of embarrassment or something stupid like that, or thinking, oh, they can't help me or whatever. Yes, they can. They're trained and they know how to do it. They know how to help people. And half of the time when you talk to people who run and operate those crisis lines, they are survivors themselves. So they were there. They were doing the same things. They were maybe ready to end their own life, and now they're well and healthy and happy, and they want to help people. And so that's the whole issue. Most of those crisis lines are manned by people who know exactly what it's like to be suffering and ready to give it all up. So that's why I always encourage people to make sure you do reach out, whether it's phoning a crisis line, getting a counselor, getting a therapist, getting involved in group support. You deserve to have a good life. You do not deserve to suffer, and you do not deserve to carry this garbage around for the rest of your entire life, suffering from behind it, you know what I mean, and being stuck in it. And it's just not right. It's so sad to see people doing that, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, he was 33 years old when he committed suicide. And he never had one moment of peace in his entire lifetime, I would like to venture to say. That's why I ask people, just to make sure you make the phone call. Suicide is never the answer. You want to experience peace in this life. You want to experience comfort and joy and happiness in this life and go on. You know what I mean? You do not want to give up, and that's the whole issue. I keep telling people, keep reaching out, and do not allow yourself to destroy yourself, right? Because that's the worst thing I can think of, to allow something to take you out because of what somebody else did. I was about ready to do that myself, about, 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. And I was sitting there thinking, why do I have to be in pain my whole life? Why do I have, about the only way I could think that I would be out of the pain was to end it, just like my brother. And then I thought, you stupid, what are you doing? No one's going to care in my family. Oh, they might cry a little bit and shed a few tears, and that'd be about it. You know what I mean? Because our family is so dysfunctional that nobody really nobody cared. That's the whole issue. That's why half my family is dead. And they still don't, because they're so involved in their own little microcosm world that they can't see that the whole thing was extremely wrong, and that our family should have had counseling and therapy many, many years ago. We probably, most of us would still be here, I'd like to think anyway. So that's the whole issue, I was ready at that point to think maybe I should just give it up too. And then I thought, no way. I'm going to win this fight. I'm staying alive. And by doing so, it's just a huge burn on my parents. Because it's like, you know what? You could not destroy me. You just could not destroy me. As much and as hard as you tried, I am still here. And I am fighting every single day for other people. And also for myself, so that I can have a good life. And a peaceful life, you know what I mean? A life with comfort and learn, I love to laugh and have a good time, and I love to enjoy myself. And even people know that about me. When people that know me, I'm very serious on my shows, but that's because this is a very serious topic. But I love to laugh and have a good time and enjoy life, But in the back of my heart and my mind, always was this whole issue of self-worthlessness and loathing and hating this life and hating what my parents had done, and it was really destroying me. By the time I was 41, I was so tired of it. I was just so tired of feeling like that. I thought, why do I have to feel like this? Why can't I not just end the pain? I could, and I had sort of thought of many ways before that I could end my life, but never went through with it. Thank God, because 3 years now later, I'm sitting here feeling so much better, and so much happier, so much healthier inside. I don't have that same pain inside me anymore, and I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling pretty good most days. You know what I mean? So I encourage people to stay here with us and get some help. You know what I mean? No matter what kind of help it is, you reach out and get some help. So important. So it says we can call a trusted friend. If you have a trusted friend, a good idea to get some trusted friends. Allow your pets to give you nurturing and support. I have pets, and I love my pets, and I don't have children, but I have a bunny and a kitty cat, and I love them so much, and they are very nurturing, and it makes me feel good to be able to take care of them. And in the meantime, they give you unconditional love, and they're very sweet and very calming, and they give you something to laugh about too because they're so funny. Write to a friend, and it says, know that friends cannot always be there, have backup people, because that's important. If you think, what if I couldn't get a hold of this one person? You want to have a backup person just in case, or a couple of backup people just in case you can't reach one person. You'll have a few who will be available at different times during the day who can help you, right? So important. Write to a friend. Yeah, send an email, call someone. These are things that we can do to seek assistance from people, right? Use the resources in your church or spiritual setting. Stay with a friend at your home or theirs, for a little added extra comfort, having someone around that we know who cares about us and is not going to hurt us and who wants to help us out. Take a class or workshop. I think that's a great idea. Learning is a good idea. Getting involved is a good idea. Not just sitting back and letting life pass you by. When you get involved, you start meeting people, making friends, and you start realizing that, hey, I'm interested in this, and then pretty soon before you know it, you have new hobbies and new friends and cool stuff happening. And a lot of times it doesn't have to cost a whole lot of money or any money. Some of it would be, free. You take free workshops at libraries sometimes and different things like that. Some stuff online is free that you can join in and get involved in. It says join a therapy group, volunteer somewhere. Volunteering is really cool. I like to volunteer. I volunteer for 7 different organizations. 6 now. 6 organizations, and I can't spend very much time in the others because I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. But I still like to give a hand where I can in the other ones too, because it makes me feel good to be able to help people, right? Look after a child now and then. It says, have a slumber party, seek encouragement from friends, have a party, use internet support groups, reconnect with someone special, go for a walk, movie, or shopping with a friend. Enjoy a pleasant activity with a friend, and listen to your favorite or upbeat music with a friend, and go dancing, things like that. So this is the end of their list here for coping lists. And the coping lists, they cover the 4 activities that Michael C. Irving has created. And he's, the first one was take care of yourself, stay healthy. The second one was create boundaries. The third one, relieve stress. And the fourth one that he lists here with the different lists was the cope with crisis. And managing a crisis, I think, is the most important one. We can learn how to take care of ourselves daily and create, boundaries and manage stress and whatnot. But when you're managing a crisis, that is such a huge thing. And it says what to do in a crisis. I'll read this again. We already read this, but I'm going to go over it quickly. And it says, what to do in a crisis is probably the most important list you can have. And when you are feeling overwhelmed, it is the most difficult time to know what you should do to stabilize. That's the whole issue. When you're in the middle of a crisis, the issue with a crisis is that it will cause you to be unfocused. And I know, my whole life was a crisis as a child, so I know it's very hard to focus and to know what you should do. You might find yourself running around in circles and just not able to handle things in a crisis. And we have to have our list ready before the crisis. So start ahead of time making a crisis list. Because that way, if you do have a crisis, you will have your list handy and just go and know immediately where your list is. Keep it somewhere where you can find it. And as soon as you feel like, oh man, this is bad, and you realize that you're in the middle of a crisis, you can grab your list and then go through it. So important. It says, managing a crisis is about lowering the degree of suffering you are in and reconnecting with some form of empowerment and hope. You do not have to continue to suffer. The worst thing you faced was the original abuse, and you made it through that. Now you can find a way to manage the memories and flashbacks that occur. And using your personal ways of grounding and turning to other people are important at times of crisis. You do not have to be alone with your despair. It says you can call a friend, support group member, or therapist. If you cannot contact someone in your personal support system, call a crisis line, distress center, or help phone. Have help and crisis line phone numbers on your crisis list. And if you do not have a support line you have used before, look in the front of your phone book. That's where you find a lot of those numbers for crisis lines, right? It says, or check our crisis line listings page. So they have a crisis line listing page here on Irving Studios, www.irvingstudios.com. It says one of the most important items on the crisis list is the directive to go back to the top of this list, to repeat these things, right? This instruction is telling you that there is hope and that you just need to review your crisis list another time to find something that will help you right now. So you managed a crisis by working towards grounding and getting back into the here and now, and to ground and return to the present when you were upset. It often requires that you do something about overwhelming feelings from the past. And he says feelings are managed by processing them and letting them go, by burning up enough stress associated with the feelings, by getting nurturing and understanding that assists with healing and repatterning, or by finding some form of distraction. And these are each different responses, and they are each good responses in their own time. And it says often a crisis is managed by employing a combination of coping and healing strategies. A crisis can help clarify and bring to head certain emotional issues and personality patterns that one avoids because of the severity of trauma and buried pain associated with the concern. And therapy sessions or personal processing of issues can be a quite beneficial element of managing a crisis. Now, this guy is a psychotherapist, and he's also a survivor, so this is what he's saying to us, Make yourself a list of what to do in a crisis. We'll repeat this one. This is so important. Phone my therapist is number one. Phone a friend. See my support person or sponsor. Breathe deeply. Count to 100. Remind myself of my location, where I'm at, time, date. Put a clock or the calendar near me so I can help be oriented, Look around the room. Find a comfortable or safe location. Go for a fast walk. Punch a pillow. Remind myself of my accomplishments. Look at a photo album of good times. Make a therapy appointment. Take a day off. Go to work, find comfort, healing, or understanding on the website, the Survivor Monument website. Read a self-help book. Read a good novel. Read some fiction. Watch TV. Rent a movie. Organize or clean the house. Eat comfort food. Exercise real hard. Meditate. Listen to meditation music. Do yoga. We could paint, sculpt, or pound clay. Bake. Write in our journals. Cry for a while. Swear or mumble gibberish to let it go. Call a crisis line. Go back to the top of this list. So that's just some things that we can do if we're trying to manage a crisis, right? So important, right? So yes, this is awesome information. I hope everybody will check it out. I have a few resources I want to pass on as far as like the survivors websites that I found very helpful. The ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program at www.ascasupport.org. That is a great website with a Survivor to Thriver workbook there, and that Survivor to Thriver workbook is awesome. I went through it myself and on shows here, and you'd have to go back through the archives to find them, but you can get that Survivor to Thriver workbook. It's free. You can download it right from their site, www.ascasupport.org, and that's Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, a Morris Center program. That is an awesome website. There is also Safe Alternatives, Self-Abuse Finally Ends. That's www.safe-alternatives.com. And they have a safe blog, webinars, resources, journals, articles, and books on, self-injury and self-abuse, right? It's so important to get that information. Silverbraid.org. Silverbraid.org is a Silverbraid Survivors of Sexual Exploitation Network. It's the voice of Voices for Justice Network. And Ann Bissell is the founder. That is a great website, the silverbraid.org. You can type into the browser Silverbraid and it will bring it up. Hope for Healing, Blog Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com. Hope for Healing, that's Gail Crabtree, Voices of Hope, and she is a victim of sexual assault, and she has so many guests and great information on her show, and she has a Hope for Healing blog and all kinds of stuff, so you want to check that out too. And there's so many. I have so many. If anybody just needs some of this stuff, just get a hold of me as far as resources and stuff that I have seen out there. We got about a minute left. We are Adult Survivors of Child Abuse and Neglect. This is also really good, www.wearesurvivors.org. That's a great website. And also Heal My PTSD. This is Michelle Rosenthal's Heal My PTSD, www.healmyptsd.com. That is a great website. Suicide.org, and also www.suicide.org and www.suicideinfo dreamcatchers.ca, both really good websites. So I have tons and tons of information if anybody needs anything. Get a hold of me on Blog Talk Radio, or you can contact me on Facebook or whatnot, different places. And make sure you have a really great day and a great weekend. Take care of yourselves, reach out and get some help. Don't suffer in silence. That's all I have to say. And don't forget to tune in to my to the show tonight to listen to Donna Shearer and myself discussing my book, A Life of Death, The Redemption. All proceeds are going to Dreamcatchers for Abused Children to help fund all the programs and to stop child abuse. I hope everybody will grab a copy. And the copy is now available from the website as an ebook. And the copy is available at lulu.com, Shear and Potter Books, and that's KSHIR, Shear and Potter Books at lulu.com. You can grab it from my website here at Blog Talk Radio just by clicking on the link down at the bottom of the page. My book is there. And also on, if you need to get a hold of me for any reasons, you can like I said, you can get a hold of me on Facebook or Blog Talk Radio here. You can send me a message. And otherwise, just take care of yourselves. I really hope and just keep you in my thoughts and keep you in my heart, in hopes that you will reach out and get some help. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. There's almost 5,500 shows listened to. Actually, there's over 5,500 shows listening to. Someone's listening, and you know what? I thank you so much. Really, I don't even, words can't even express really how I feel about that. I just want to thank everyone who's tuning in and who's a part of my life and walking this journey with me. And I thank you for being here, and I thank you for staying here, for sticking around, and for being my friend. So take care, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.